On a cold, rainy evening in downtown Seattle, a small 7-year-old boy named Liam walked into a busy upscale restaurant called the Harbor Grill. He was completely soaked, wearing an old jacket that was too big for him. In his tiny hand, he held just one crumpled dollar bill. The moment he stepped inside, all the lively chatter from the wealthy customers stopped. Everyone went silent and stared at the little boy standing alone at the entrance. If you're enjoying this story so far, please subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss any thrilling new stories. Also, join my WhatsApp channel for early updates and more exciting content. The link is in the description. The restaurant manager, Mr. Reynolds, quickly walked over with a worried look on his face. He expected the boy to cause some trouble or ask for money. Liam looked up with big, serious eyes and spoke in a soft but clear voice. "Sir, I need the biggest meal you can give for $1. It's not for me." His words hung in the air. A strange tension filled the warm restaurant. The head waitress, Emily, felt something was wrong. The boy kept glancing nervously toward the large glass windows as if he feared someone outside might see him. Mr. Reynolds tried to gently ask him to leave, but Liam stood firm. "Please," he whispered, "I have to go back soon. They are following me." No one understood who they were, but the fear in his young voice sent a chill through everyone nearby. Customers began whispering among themselves. One older lady, Mrs. Caldwell, watched the boy closely. The rain pounded harder against the windows. Liam's small hands trembled slightly as he clutched that single dollar. He refused to sit down or explain more. The atmosphere grew heavy with suspense. Something dangerous was clearly happening, and this little boy had walked straight into a place full of strangers with nothing but $1 and a desperate plea. The atmosphere grew heavy with suspense. Something dangerous was clearly happening, and this little boy had walked straight into a place full of strangers with nothing but $1 and a desperate plea. Mr. Reynolds paused for a moment, unsure what to do. He looked at the soaked child, and then at the crowded tables, where people were watching silently. "Son, $1 won't get you much here," he said kindly but firmly. "This is not a cheap place. You should go home." Liam shook his head quickly, his wet hair sticking to his forehead. "It has to be the biggest meal possible," he replied in a low voice. "My mom needs it more than me. She hasn't eaten in 2 days." His words sent a wave of surprise through the nearby tables. Emily, the head waitress, stepped closer. She noticed how Liam kept turning his head toward the rainy street outside. His small body stayed tense, as if ready to run at any second. One customer whispered loudly, "Is this some kind of prank?" But Mrs. Caldwell, the older lady sitting near the window, felt her heart tighten. She had taught children for 30 years and knew when a child was truly scared. "Wait," she said softly. "Let's not send him away just yet." Liam's eyes met hers for a brief second before he looked back at the windows again. Shadows moved outside under the streetlights, but it was hard to see clearly through the heavy rain. Emily leaned down and asked gently, "Who is following you, sweetheart?" Liam's lips pressed together tightly. He did not answer at first. Then he whispered so quietly that only she could hear, "Bad men. They hurt my mom. I ran away to get help, but I have to go back before they notice I'm gone." His voice trembled slightly at the end. The fear in it was real and raw. Mr. Reynolds signaled Emily to take the boy to a quiet corner, while he thought about what to do next. As they moved, Liam clutched the dollar bill so hard his knuckles turned white. The restaurant felt different now. The warm lights and delicious smells clashed with the growing tension. Outside, a dark car slowed down near the entrance. Liam froze when he saw it. His breathing became faster. Emily noticed his panic and placed a protective hand on his shoulder. Something was very wrong. This was no ordinary hungry child. The boy carried a secret that could put everyone in danger, and the night was only getting darker. Something was very wrong. This was no ordinary hungry child. The boy carried a secret that could put everyone in danger, and the night was only getting darker. Emily kept her hand gently on Liam's shoulder as she led him toward a quiet corner. Table near the kitchen door. The boy's eyes darted back to the large windows every few seconds. Rain hammered against the glass, but he seemed to see threats in every shadow moving on the wet street. Mr. Reynolds watched from behind the counter, his face tight with worry. He quietly told another waiter to keep an eye on the front entrance. Mrs. Caldwell stood up from her table and walked over slowly. "Here, child," she said in a warm voice, offering her untouched glass of water. Liam took it with both hands but barely drank. His small fingers still gripped the crumpled dollar bill like it was his only hope. "I need the food soon," Liam whispered to Emily. "They said they would hurt her more if I take too long." His voice was so low it was almost lost in the soft music playing in the restaurant. Emily felt a cold shiver run down her back. "Who are they, Liam? Can you tell me?" The boy shook his head and looked down at the floor. His wet shoes left small puddles on the clean tiles. At a nearby table, a young man pulled out his phone and started recording the scene quietly. Whispers spread through the restaurant like smoke. Some customers looked uncomfortable, while others watched with curiosity mixed with fear. Outside, the dark car that had slowed down earlier now parked across the street. Two figures sat inside, their faces hidden by the rain-streaked windows. Liam suddenly froze. His breathing grew quick and shallow. "They're here," he said under his breath. Emily turned her head just in time to see one tall man step out of the car and look toward the restaurant entrance. The man's eyes scanned the place carefully. Mr. Reynolds noticed the movement, too, and stepped closer to the boy, trying to block him from view. The warm, inviting lights of the harbour grill now felt too bright, too exposed. Tension filled the air like a coming storm. Liam's tiny body trembled as he clutched the dollar tighter. He knew time was running out. Every second he stayed inside made the danger outside grow stronger. The customers who had been enjoying their expensive dinners now sat in uneasy silence, wondering what this scared little boy had brought into their safe world. The night outside seemed darker than before, and the secret Liam carried was slowly pulling everyone deeper into something none of them expected. The night outside seemed darker than before, and the secret Liam carried was slowly pulling everyone deeper into something none of them expected. Mrs. Caldwell moved closer to the boy and knelt down gently so her eyes were level with his. "I believe you, young man," she said softly. "Let me help." Without waiting for an answer, she waved over Emily and told Mr. Reynolds to prepare the biggest meal possible: steak, mashed potatoes, warm soup and fresh bread, and put it on her bill. Liam's eyes widened with surprise and relief, but the fear never left his face. "Thank you, ma'am," he whispered, still clutching the $1 bill. "It's for my mom. She's really hurt." As the kitchen hurried to pack the hot food, Mrs. Caldwell noticed Liam slip a small folded piece of paper under the edge of her table. When no one was looking directly at him, he met her eyes for a moment and said very quietly, "If I don't come back, please give this to the police." Emily felt her heart race. She had seen the note too. While pretending to adjust the tablecloth, she quickly picked it up and opened it just enough to read the words. "My mom is hurt bad. Bad men at 142 Oakwood Lane. Please help us." The address was written in shaky, childish handwriting. Emily's hands trembled as she showed it to Mr. Reynolds behind the counter. The manager's face turned serious. He stepped away and quietly called the police, keeping his voice low so the customers would not panic. Outside, the two men from the dark car had stepped onto the sidewalk. One of them lit a cigarette and stared straight into the restaurant, his eyes searching every corner. Liam saw them and ducked lower behind Mrs. Caldwell's chair, his small body shaking with terror. The delicious smell of the fresh meal filled the air. But no one felt hungry anymore. The once relaxing restaurant now felt like a cage. Tension wrapped around everyone like a tight rope. Liam kept glancing at the back door near the kitchen, clearly planning his next move. Mrs. Caldwell placed a gentle hand on his back. "Stay a little longer, child. Help is coming," she whispered. But Liam knew better. The men outside were getting impatient. One started walking toward the entrance. The boy's breathing grew fast and shallow. Time was running out faster than anyone realized, and the danger was now only steps away from walking through the front door. Time was running out faster than anyone realized, and the danger was now only steps away from walking through the front door. One of the tall men pushed open the restaurant door with a loud creak. Cold air rushed in as he stepped inside, his heavy boots leaving wet prints on the floor. He tried to look casual like a normal customer, but his sharp eyes scanned every table, searching for the small boy. The second man stayed outside, watching the windows closely. Liam ducked even lower behind Mrs. Caldwell's chair, his heart beating so hard it felt like it might burst. Emily quickly moved in front of him to block the view. Mr. Reynolds walked up to the stranger with a forced smile. "Good evening, sir. Table for one." The man grunted and sat at the counter, but his head kept turning toward the back of the restaurant. The air felt thick with fear. Several customers quietly paid their bills and left, sensing something was wrong. Mrs. Caldwell kept her hand steady on Liam's shoulder, trying to comfort him without drawing attention. "Help is coming," she whispered again. Liam nodded, but his eyes were full of tears he refused to let fall. He still held the crumpled dollar bill tightly in his fist. Emily slipped back to the kitchen and checked on the food pack. It was ready, hot and large enough for 2 people. She brought it over carefully and placed it on the table. But as she did, the man at the counter stood up suddenly. He walked slowly toward their corner, pretending to look for the restroom. Liam's small body went completely still. His breathing almost stopped. Emily stepped forward bravely. "Sir, the restroom is that way," she said, pointing in the opposite direction. The man stared at her for a long second before turning away. Mr. Reynolds whispered to Mrs. Caldwell that the police were on their way, but would take at least 10 minutes. The rain outside grew louder, mixing with the tense silence inside. Liam looked at the back door again. "I have to go now," he said in a shaking voice. "If I stay, they will find my mom first." The kind old lady tried to hold him back, but the boy was already moving. The stranger turned around fast when he heard the boy's voice. His eyes locked onto Liam. A cold smile crossed his face. The chase was about to begin, and the little boy with only $1 was ready to run straight back, into danger to save his mother. The stranger turned around fast when he heard the boy's voice. His eyes locked onto Liam. A cold smile crossed his face. The chase was about to begin, and the little boy with only $1 was ready to run straight back, into danger to save his mother. Liam did not wait another second. He grabbed the warm food bag from the table and dashed toward the back door near the kitchen. His small legs moved faster than anyone expected. "Stop that kid!" the tall man shouted, pushing past tables and knocking over a chair. The loud noise made several customers scream. Mr. Reynolds tried to block the man's path, but the stranger shoved him hard against the counter. Emily screamed for help and ran after Liam to protect him. Mrs. Caldwell stood up in shock, still holding the note the boy had given her. Liam burst through the back door into the dark, rainy alley behind the restaurant. Cold rain hit his face as he ran, clutching the food bag tightly in one hand and the dollar bill in the other. Emily followed right behind him. "Liam, wait!" she called, but the boy kept going. Heavy footsteps splashed in the puddles behind them. The tall man had followed them out, and his partner was now running from the front of the building to cut them off. The alley was narrow and filled with shadows. Trash bins and wet cardboard boxes made it hard to see clearly. Liam slipped on the slick ground, but caught himself quickly. His heart pounded in his ears. He could hear the men shouting threats. "Come here, you little brat! Your mom is waiting!" one of them yelled. The words sent fresh fear through Liam's body, but they also made him run faster. Emily caught up and grabbed his arm, pulling him into a side street. "This way," she whispered urgently. They could hear police sirens far away, but they were still too distant to help right now. The 2 men were gaining on them. One pulled out a phone and spoke quickly into it, calling for more help. Rain poured down harder, making the streets slippery and dangerous. Liam's chest burned from running, but he refused to stop. The warm food bag was getting heavier in the rain, yet he held it like treasure. Every shadow on the street looked like another threat. The once safe city now felt like a trap closing in. Behind them, the men's footsteps grew louder. The little boy with nothing but $1 had started. Something much bigger than anyone imagined. And the night was turning into a desperate race for survival. The little boy with nothing but $1 had started. Something much bigger than anyone imagined. And the night was turning into a desperate race for survival. Liam and Emily ran through the narrow side streets, their shoes splashing in deep puddles. Rain fell like needles on their faces. The two men were close behind, shouting angry threats that echoed between the buildings. Liam's small legs were tired, but fear gave him strength. He still held the food bag tightly against his chest. "This way!" Liam gasped, pulling Emily toward an old abandoned warehouse at the end of a dark alley. He knew this place well from playing hide-and-seek in the neighborhood. The rusty door creaked loudly as they pushed it open and slipped inside. The building smelled of dust and old wood. Broken windows let in flashes of streetlight, creating scary shadows everywhere. Emily quickly closed the door behind them and looked for something to block it. Outside, the men reached the warehouse. "We know you're in there, kid," one of them yelled. Their heavy footsteps circled the building, checking every entrance. Liam's breathing was fast and loud in the quiet space. He led Emily deeper inside, past old machines and broken crates. "My mom is here," he whispered. They kept her in the back room. Emily's eyes widened in shock. She finally understood the full danger. They moved carefully through the darkness until they reached a small room at the far end. There, tied to an old chair with rope, was Liam's mother. She looked weak and hurt, with bruises on her face. Her eyes filled with tears when she saw her son. "Liam, you came back," she said in a weak voice. "You should have run away." Liam ran to her and tried to untie the ropes with his small fingers. Emily helped quickly, her hands shaking. The food bag sat on the floor beside them. Outside, the men started kicking at the main door. Loud bangs filled the warehouse. "We don't have much time," Emily whispered. Police sirens sounded far away, but they were still not close enough. Liam's mother looked at the head waitress with grateful eyes. "They want money we don't have," she explained softly. "They said they would hurt Liam if I didn't pay." The banging grew louder. A window shattered somewhere in the building. The men were inside now, their voices getting closer. Liam held his mother's hand tightly, the crumpled dollar bill still in his other fist. The small group huddled together in the dark room, knowing the danger was only seconds away from finding them. The small group huddled together in the dark room, knowing the danger was only seconds away from finding them. Heavy footsteps echoed through the old warehouse as the two men moved closer. Liam held his mother's hand tightly, his small body shaking with fear. Emily stood in front of them, trying to stay brave even though her heart was racing. The food bag lay forgotten on the dusty floor. "We know you're here!" one man shouted angrily. His voice bounced off the walls, making the dark space feel even smaller. The other man laughed coldly. The kid thought he could save her with $1. How cute! They kicked open doors one by one, getting nearer to the back room. Liam's mother whispered, "Hide, Liam, please." But the boy refused to leave her side. He still clutched the crumpled dollar bill like a lucky charm. Emily looked around desperately for anything to use as a weapon. She found an old metal pipe and held it ready. The sound of breaking glass came from the next room. The men were smashing things in their search. Rain continued to pour outside, mixing with the distant sound of police sirens that seemed too far away. Tension filled the air so thick it was hard to breathe. Liam's mother winced in pain from her injuries but tried to stay quiet. Suddenly, the door to their room flew open with a loud crash. The two tall men stood there, blocking the only exit. Their faces were angry and wet from the rain. "There you are," the first man growled, pointing at Liam. "You caused us a lot of trouble tonight, boy." Emily stepped forward bravely. "Leave them alone. The police are coming," she warned. But the men only laughed and moved closer. Liam's mother tried to shield her son with her body. The little boy looked up at the men with big, fearless eyes, even though tears ran down his cheeks. One man reached out to grab Liam. Emily swung the metal pipe, hitting the man's arm and making him shout in pain. Chaos broke out in the small room. Shouts and struggles filled the air. The second man pushed Emily against the wall. The situation was turning deadly fast. Just when it seemed all hope was lost, the sound of police sirens grew much louder outside the warehouse. Flashing red and blue lights shone through the broken windows. The men looked at each other in panic. Help had finally arrived, but the danger was not over yet. Help had finally arrived, but the danger was not over yet. The two men froze as bright police Lights flashed through the broken warehouse windows. Sirens wailed loudly right outside. "Police! Drop your weapons and come out with your hands up," a strong voice shouted from outside. The men panicked. One of them grabbed Liam roughly by the arm and pulled him close. "Stay back or the kid gets hurt," he yelled toward the windows. Emily screamed and tried to pull Liam free, but the second man pushed her down. Liam's mother cried out in fear, still weak from her injuries. The little boy struggled hard, kicking at the man's legs with all his strength. Outside, police officers moved quickly around the building, their flashlights cutting through the darkness and rain. Tension reached its highest point as the men realized they were trapped. One officer kicked open a side door and entered with his gun raised. "Let the boy go," he ordered. The man holding Liam hesitated for a second. In that moment, Liam bit the man's hand as hard as he could. The attacker shouted in pain and loosened his grip. Liam broke free and ran straight to his mother. Emily quickly pulled both of them behind an old metal table for cover. Gunshots rang out as one of the men fired wildly toward the police. The sound was deafening in the old warehouse. Officers returned fire carefully, trying not to hit the civilians. Bullets hit the walls, sending pieces of concrete flying. Mrs. Caldwell's note had given the police the exact address, and they had arrived just in time. The fight was short but terrifying. Finally, the officers overpowered the two men. They forced them to the ground and placed handcuffs on their wrists. "You're under arrest," one officer said firmly. The men cursed as they were dragged outside into the rain. Liam ran to his mother and hugged her tightly, crying for the first time. Emily sat beside them, breathing heavily, her hands still shaking from the ordeal. The police called for an ambulance right away. Paramedics rushed in to help Liam's mother. The little boy with just $1 had led everyone through a night of pure terror, and now the long nightmare was finally ending. The little boy with just $1 had led everyone through a night of pure terror, and now the long nightmare was finally ending. Paramedics carefully lifted Liam's mother onto a stretcher and carried her into the waiting ambulance. Liam refused to let go of her hand, his small fingers still wrapped tightly around hers. Emily stood nearby, wet and exhausted, watching the flashing lights paint the rainy street in red and blue. Police officers secured the area while the two dangerous men were driven away in a patrol car. For a moment, everything felt calm at last. At the hospital, doctors treated Liam's mother for her injuries. She had a broken rib and many bruises, but she would recover. Liam sat beside her bed, still holding the crumpled dollar bill that had started everything. Mrs. Caldwell and Mr. Reynolds arrived soon after, bringing flowers and warm clothes for the boy. Emily joined them, smiling through her tiredness. "You were so brave, Liam," she said softly. The little boy looked up with tired eyes but did not smile yet. As the night turned into early morning, Liam's mother weakly called everyone closer. "There is something I need to tell you," she said in a quiet voice. The room grew still. Those men. They were not just after money. "I used to work for a bad group years ago. I took proof of their crimes and hid it before. I ran away with Liam. That dollar bill is not ordinary. I wrote a secret code inside it that leads to where the proof is hidden." Everyone stared in surprise. Liam slowly opened his tiny hand and looked at the crumpled dollar. With careful fingers, Emily helped him unfold it. On the inside, tiny numbers and letters were written in very small handwriting. It was the key to a safety deposit box containing documents that could bring down an entire criminal network. The police were called back immediately. Detectives arrived and took the dollar bill as evidence. The room filled with new tension as they realized the little boy had been carrying something far more important than food all night. This final twist changed everything. The boy who walked into the restaurant with $1 had unknowingly saved more lives than just his mother's. The documents were real and powerful. Within days, more arrests followed. The dangerous group started falling apart because of what Liam had protected without even knowing it. 1 week later, Liam and his mother returned to the Harbor Grill. This time the restaurant was closed for a special event. Mrs. Caldwell, Emily, Mr. Reynolds, and many customers who had witnessed that rainy night were all there. The warm lights glowed softly as Liam walked in, holding his mother's hand. He looked cleaner and happier, wearing new clothes. The little boy walked up to Mr. Reynolds and held out a fresh $1 bill. "This one is for you," he said in a clear voice. "Thank you for believing me." The entire restaurant stood up and clapped loudly. Tears filled many eyes. Emily hugged Liam tightly. Mrs. Caldwell smiled proudly. The community had raised enough money to give them a safe new home and help the mother start fresh. As they all sat down to eat together, Liam finally smiled a real bright smile. The rain had stopped outside, and the city lights shone peacefully through the windows. In the end, it was not just about $1 or one brave boy. It was about how one small act of courage in a scary night brought strangers together and stopped something much bigger and darker. Liam proved that even the smallest person can create the greatest change. What would you do if a scared 7-year-old boy with just $1 walked into your favorite restaurant? Tell me in the comments. If you loved this story, please subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss new thrilling tales. Also, join my WhatsApp channel for early updates. Link is in the description.